Gustavo, tú eres el único por quien volví. Hasta me duele la pinche vulva nada más de acordarme de ti. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm beyond honored. Thank you for this nomination. Hi, if you're new here, welcome. I'm Chorizo. This is my channel. Soy una desempleada, desyacerada. And on this channel, I like to give my opinion on various different things. But above all, I love to hate on movies. And today, I will be hating on Emilia Perez. The marketing for this movie was a little weird. They mostly relied on Selena Gomez to market the film. That's actually how I learned about it, through Selena Gomez fan accounts on Instagram. I didn't really know what the story was about. I just knew that she was in it and that she spoke Spanish, and it just wasn't something that caught my attention. But I kept getting reels of her acting in my feed, and looking through the comments, I saw a lot of people, a lot of Selenators defending her acting, saying things like, oh, you guys haven't even seen the movie, you need to see the movie to know the context. And so I said, you know what, yeah, I'll give it a chance. Maybe these clips are being taken out of context and maybe this movie is good. But I regret to inform you that after watching the whole 2 hours and 12 minutes of the film, I actually hate it. And it's not just because of Selena's acting. Like, there's so many things wrong with this movie. So this is everything wrong with Emilia Perez, according to me. So to give you a little bit of context, the idea for this movie came from a character of another theater play. The writer, Jack Audiard, I don't really know how to say his name. We're just gonna call him Jack. Saw this play and wanted to do more with this character that he thought was interesting. So he started writing a short story, and during the development of this, he ended up turning the script into more of an opera. However, he knew that he didn't just want to take it to the theater, he wanted to see it on the screen. And so he started contacting a bunch of other people to help them turn this script into a musical. Now, the thing is though that Jack is French and he does not speak Spanish, so he ended up writing the whole script in French, including the songs, and then it was translated into Spanish. Keep that in mind for later. And that's kind of how this came to be. That's the end of the context. For many years now, media around the world has kind of been fascinated by narco culture and has developed a lot of shows and movies that centered around this. So although Jack isn't the first director to do this, and he certainly won't be the last, he did make a lot of mistakes that make his movies stand out for the wrong reasons. I'm not big on gatekeeping. I'm not trying to say that because he's French, he should stick to producing French stories. But if you're going to venture into a culture outside of your own, especially if you're going to be discussing such a violent, sensitive, and ongoing issue as narcotráfico is, then I do expect some level of research and respect. A good example of this could be Breaking Bad. It's a show that revolves around narco culture that's written by non-Hispanic Americans, and while it could be argued that some aspects of it do romanticize this whole narcotráfico culture, it also shows us the negative side of it. It shows us the addiction, the dangers, the threats. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the whole show, but the main character doesn't even end up getting a happy ending, and we're shown how his actions affected his family, his friends, and the community around him. And that's kind of what I was expecting Emilia Perez to be. Pero el Jack dijo, chingue su madre el respeto, eso me lo paso por los huevos, y se fue recio, hizo lo que se le dio la gana y no le importó nada. Right off the bat, the movie wasn't even filmed in Mexico. It was filmed in Paris. I'm gonna read you an excerpt from The Hollywood Reporter. But during location scouting, Adyard found a gritty reality that felt out of sync with the film that was forming in his mind. I wasn't satisfied with what I was seeing, he says. It was as if I was trying to make what I had written fit into reality. But the film was demanding more stylization, so I decided to come back to France and shoot in a studio. Ah, ok. Dispense usted, señora Diar, que México no fue lo suficientemente mexicano para usted. Nos hubiera avisado y con mucho gusto todos salimos en guaraches y zarapes y sombreros. No importa, no hay pedo. Sorry that it wasn't the glamorized version that you were hoping for. But don't worry, I think everyone that watched that movie was able to tell that it was all shot in like a warehouse. All of the sets were so stereotypically Mexican or generic. So much so that it felt like if you replaced the crowds with people from any ethnicity and you changed the wording on the signs, it could literally be any place in the world. The whole movie was shot in a very static way. Whenever he was filming scenes that were supposed to be taking place outside in Mexico, the camera, it wouldn't pan out. It felt very zoom in and very restricted, almost like if the camera were to deviate a little to the left or to the right, it would break the illusion and you would end up seeing the end of the set. He would only allow himself more freedom with interior sets. And I know that it might sound like I'm just being picky, but the reason why I'm not cutting him any slack is because his story didn't need to take place in Mexico. It didn't need the whole narco arc. Essentially, the plot boils down to a family man that wishes to transition into a woman, so he himself to go on and live the life that he's always wanted. That story could have happened in his own culture, in his own country, without the organized crime aspect of it. He added it because he knew that the average gringo in Hollywood would find it exotic, morbidly beautiful, thought-provoking, revolutionary, all of these other things. It was his cheat sheet to get nominations and awards. He was hoping to use narco culture and the violence around it to turn his mid-ass story into serious cinema. And now they're going around using this whole LGBTQ, I'm an ally shield to shut down any legit criticism. And I do understand that Manitas' transition, aside from being literal, is also supposed to be some sort of rebirth. And maybe the message could have hit if it wasn't for the fact that Manitas is a violent drug lord that contributed to the violence in the country. Like various times throughout the movie, I got the impression that Jack was trying to imply that the only reason why Manitas chose a life of crime was because he wasn't allowed to be a woman. And like side note, but that's not really a good look for the trans community. If you're trying to imply that you were trying to be an ally, that you were trying to create a story that would bring empathy for the trans community, then you're failing miserably. And I'm guessing that someone in his team saw this and told him like, hey, you know what, maybe we should like tone it down a little bit, because there were attempts here and there to try and call out Emilia for this. For example, one of the songs that was nominated for an award, El Mal, is about Emilia not being able to escape her past, and about how the people that are donating to her charity events and her nonprofits are the same ones scheming with the cartels to benefit their quote-unquote legal businesses. But all of this ends up being meaningless because he ends the movie by having the townspeople carry out a statue of Emilia during her funeral procession. And I just don't understand what he's trying to even get at, because if his intention was to be cynical, then why did he spend so much of his screen time romanticizing Emilia? Emilia doesn't even really have character development. Just one day she wakes up and she sees a poster of a missing kid and she goes, damn, como que sí me pasé de lanza, ¿verdad? Sí, poquito. I think I'll be a good person now. And that's not even the worst part, because Jack really was like, sin miedo al éxito. And he went on to deliver one of the worst dialogues I've ever heard in my entire life. Remember how I said the script was originally written in French and that the musical numbers were then translated into Spanish? Well, yeah, it shows. In interviews, Jack has been pretty open about mentioning the people that helped him compose the music and the lyrics in French, but he's never spoken about the people that helped him translate, and I'm sure it's because he can't credit ChatGPT. The script lacks a lot of emotion. When characters are interacting with each other, their conversations don't flow naturally. They sound like Oblivion NPCs. The vocabulary is also all over the place. This story is supposed to be taking place in Mexico, with the three main actresses being lower to middle income, hard working class. Two of them are actually involved in this narco buchona type of lifestyle, and one of them is explicitly mentioned as being from the north, specifically Monterrey, and the other one is supposed to be a white woman who learned Spanish. But these three are out here having AP Spanish conversations the whole time. They're using words that your average Mexican citizen doesn't use. They're very outdated, and in fact, some of them I actually had to look up what they meant because I've never heard them before, and I'm not the only one. The clip of Selena Gomez saying lencha actually became a meme in the Hispanic community because it was so random and out of pocket, and it doesn't feel natural because of the inconsistency. Like, for example, at the beginning of the movie, Rita sings a song and she uses the word chambear, and then she says the phrase puto salario. In this same song later on, she references her fat ass by saying pompis mantecosas, which is such a weird phrase, like those two words together. But more than that, why use the word pompis? Like, it's not that it's not Mexican slang, it is, but it's such a preppy, childish word used to refer to your ass. You're telling me that a character who feels comfortable using words like puto, using words like puta madre, cabrón, and chambear doesn't feel comfortable saying the word culo? She couldn't have said nalgas, nachas. And this isn't even done with the purpose of trying to rhyme with previous words, because the thing about Emilia Perez is that none of the songs in this musical actually rhyme. They're actually very repetitive. And this isn't like a one-time thing. It's not like this only happens with one character. From beginning to end, all of the characters are written like this. There's a scene between Jesse and Emilia where Emilia refers to Jesse's boyfriend as tu padrote. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't really know what that word meant. I knew that she must have been trying to insult him in some way, and so I looked it up and it turns out that it means pimp. But that was so random because the guy is a dealer, not a pimp. So why she would choose to offend him by calling him a pimp is beyond me. I know that in English, pimp is kind of a common word, but that's not the case in Spanish. And something similar happened with the famous Selena Gomez scene that went viral, the one where she talks about her vulva. That was honestly such a cringy scene for a lot of reasons. Like, one, aren't you supposed to be like a white woman that's barely learning to speak Spanish? Why are you using such a scientific word? It's not like she learned Spanish at a school. Like, she learned it amongst drug dealers. It just would have made more sense if she would have used other words like, I don't know, panocha, fucking puchina. But also, what does that even mean? When I first saw the clip before I watched the movie, I thought she meant it like in a bad way because it sounds like it's supposed to be negative. Like, just the mere thought of you makes my vagina hurt so much because I hate you so much. But apparently she was trying to say that she was horny for him, and that's so odd to me. I don't know, maybe I'm just dumb or maybe it was the delivery, but like, if I was a dude and a woman called me and told me that, I would change my name and move to another country. Now, I understand that to English speakers, this isn't a big deal because all of you probably watched this movie with subtitles, and so the subtitles in English probably had a dialogue that made a lot more sense, but to us Spanish speakers, the script was just all over the place and took away from the story. The few times that I was being immersed, the dialogue would always pull me back out and slap me in the face and spit on me. And again, the reason why it makes me so mad is because this story didn't even have to be in Spanish in the first place. And I know that not even the best actor out there could fix bad writing, but in this case, hiring actors with a decent grasp on the Spanish language could have actually helped a lot. Out of all three of them, Carla Sofia was the one that did better, because even though she's Spanish as in Barcelona, she actually does speak Spanish. And so even though you could hear her accent here and there, she was able to transmit a lot more emotions than her other two co-stars. Zoe Saldaña did an okay job. Her Spanish was comprehensible, and even though there were certain words where you could tell that she has a little bit of a pocho accent, I never felt like I needed captions to understand what she was trying to say. It's just that there was still a lot of awkwardness showing through. Now, Selena Gomez though, that's a whole nother story. The main point that's been used to defend Selena's acting is that her character is supposed to be a white woman who's barely learning Spanish, and that's why it makes sense for her to sound like that. However, nowhere in the film are we ever explicitly told this. What we do know though is that Manitas and Jessie met when Jessie was 17 at a place called La Azucena, which I'm assuming is a place in Mexico. It wouldn't make sense for Manitas to travel to the US given his occupation. They married not long after that, and they've been living in Mexico ever since. We're also never told how old Jessie is supposed to be, but from the looks of it, we can infer that she's either in her late 20s or early 30s. Now, math has never really been my thing, but according to me, this kind of means that she's been living in Mexico for at least 10 years or so. It doesn't make sense for a character like that to have such a thick accent, especially considering that the vocabulary in her dialogue is so ostentatious. And while it's not her fault that the writing lacks consistency, I do believe that as a Spanish speaker reading the dialogue, these plot holes should have been obvious to her, leading her to pick a more fitting accent. That's the real problem though. Selena Gomez doesn't speak any Spanish. And I don't really understand why this is such a controversial take when she herself has been saying this for many years now. And anyone with enough time and with enough practice would be able to deliver a speech in any given language, but it takes deeper understanding to have a comprehensible pronunciation and to connect with the words that are being said, which clearly was not the case for Selena. And I think that this is what Eugenio Derbez was trying to say in his interview. It's not just that her pronunciation is goofy, it's that her acting is stale, robotic. It really did feel like somebody else fed her the script, she memorized it, and then they told her, oh, you're supposed to be sad for this take, you're supposed to be angry. But you could see it in her eyes, in her mannerisms, in her delivery, that she really didn't understand what she was saying. That's why in the scenes where Jessie is supposed to be having normal, calm conversations, her Spanish is more comprehensible because she has more time to enunciate. But then in the scenes where she's supposed to be angry, sad, screaming, her Spanish sounds horrible. And look, her not speaking Spanish doesn't make her any less Mexican, but it does make her a selfish person por a fuerzas querer meterse en un lugar en donde ella no cabe. That's the issue that I and a lot of other people had with her performance. That's why when she clapped back at Eugenio Derbez saying, I understand where you're coming from, but I did the best that I could with the time that I had, was so infuriating. First of all, what an unprofessional, immature way of responding for someone who's been in the entertainment industry for so long. Secondly, why are you even trying to blame it on somebody else? Trying to imply that the producers didn't give you enough time to prepare for this role. Like, Miss Girl, when you were handed the script, did you not notice that all of it was in Spanish? Also, wasn't the filming of this movie delayed by like months? And in all of that time and with all of that money, ¿no te pudiste pagar unas clases, un coach que te diera consejos? Somebody really needs to take her phone away from her, because how dare you say that you didn't have enough time when Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo just told the whole world that they had to prepare for months before their first audition. And lastly, saying that you did the best that you could kind of implies that at some point you realized that this was too much for you. Why didn't you go up to your director, talk to him, told them that you were struggling to keep up, and asked him for help? Why not admit your mistake and give this opportunity to someone that was better prepared? And like, no offense, but I refuse to believe that they couldn't find another white woman that could speak Spanish with an accent. Y ahora quiere venir a causar lástima, hazme el favor. I said it before and I'll say it again. The movie was filmed in Spanish. It was obvious that it was going to attract a Spanish-speaking audience. Why did you think that they wouldn't be able to recognize a mediocre delivery? I'm sorry, pero es que a legua se nota que el único motivo por el cual la escogieron a ella es porque Jack sabía que los fans de Selena Gomez le iban a hacer promoción gratis a la película y que iban a consumir el producto sin importar si fuera bueno o malo. That's the reason why she's the center of every single promotional poster, even though her character isn't even the main one. Y ni modérrimo, se tenía que decir y se dijo, y yo no me voy a andar disculpando. Perdón, me enchilé. I want to end this video by reading a quote that Zoe Saldaña gave to Dazed. And I quote, "This is not a film you want to have thoughts about. You just sit, and whether you like it or not, it's going to compel you to have feelings." End quote. And Zoe was right. I did have lots of feelings when watching this movie. Boredom, anger, cringe, lots of cringe, secondhand embarrassment, frustration, etc., etc. But to say that this is a movie that you shouldn't think too much about just goes to show how far removed all of these actresses and the director are from reality. It really proves that not a single Mexican national had any part in any process of this film. They live in so much privilege that they forget that narcotráfico isn't something of the past. It's something that's still happening today and that's impacting a lot of people. It just goes to show how fake activism is, how performative all of these celebrities and producers and screenwriters are, because I wonder how different the reaction to this film would have been if instead of presenting it in the Cannes Festival, they would have presented it in Mexico to a Mexican audience. And you know what the funniest part is of all of this is that Mexicans were not even politically correct. So if this actually was as good as Hollywood makes it out to be, nobody would have had a problem with it. But it's literally just copium, because this movie, Emilia Perez, was so bad, it was genuinely offensive. I know that it's gonna be very hard for this video to get any views, but in the slight chance that it does and this somehow reaches any of you, to the 4 female actresses, I just want to say it's very obvious that you all are gonna win your awards and you might even get more job opportunities after this, pero la vergüenza nadie se las va a quitar, porque todos aquí sabemos que para conseguir ese pinche monillo chapeado de oro todo rascuacho, ustedes tuvieron que andar lamiendo del piso los chicles que Jacques Audiard escupía, le tuvieron que andar sorbiendo del ano la pinche diarrea que se aventaba todos los días. Anyways, I wish you girlies the best. I hope you all look awesome for the red carpet. On a more serious and real note though, if any of you are looking for anything interesting to watch, I suggest that you check out Joanne Sacre Bleu. It's a short film created by the brilliant Camila de Aurora. In only a matter of days and with a very limited budget, this absolute diva got together with a bunch of talented mexas, and all of them together delivered a daring, innovative, and unapologetically opinionated film about the struggles that plague modern day France. So yeah, if you're a film enthusiast, please go check it out. It really is admirable how this group of strangers came together, donated all of their talents and their knowledge, and completed this film without expecting any financial compensation from it. Their only reward was having a few laughs and the satisfaction of annoying some holier than thou individuals. But yeah, thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Justice for Eugenio Derbez. Stream Joanne Sacre Bleu. Y que chinga su reputísima madre el perro de Jack a odiar. Bye!